Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Hey everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Hope that Pride has treated you well. Are we talking about the dress I wore to the Ren Fair? Yeah. Somebody very, very special gave me that. Thank you, Mrs. Wigglewolf. This one? I like this one. Quite fond of it. Part of what I like about this one is it's actually quite secure, but it looks like I'm about to fall out of it. I have fun with that. The nails. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with this one now that they've started coming off. These ones are still there. Still got my my gender fluid colors flying, which, yeah, I'm proud of that. Very va-va-voom. Thank you, Gozer. Yes, a happy Pride. I hope you've all had a nice Pride so far and will continue to, and that the world will not immediately go to hell as soon as we enter the next month, although it hasn't really stopped going to hell. Whatever. Yay for gay. So, we have the Superman news. I did put a short out on that already, so I don't really have too much to add. I don't know either of these actors. I mean, they look the parts, you know, going by headshots. Yeah, I have been putting out more stuff lately. Actually, like, it's funny. I might have bumped the planned Wednesday video for tomorrow, which is the finale of Flux, the Take Two Doctor Who review. I might have bumped that another week and done the Spider-Verse thing on Wednesday. Except, I don't even remember who it was. I don't even know if they're a regular commentator, but somebody had asked in the comment section on the Illuminati video, you know, what happened to the Take Two review. And I'm like, it'll be out next week, promise. And because I'd made a promise to that one person, I was like, well, I can't bump the Wednesday video again. And so you guys got an extra one. You got a Monday video. Definitely don't expect that on a regular basis. Because since I still can't afford to outsource my editing. So this is a lot of extra work. I recorded an episode for my podcast about my favorite queer celebrities. You're on the list. Oh, Jason. I don't know how well I count as a celebrity, but I will take the compliment. Whether or not I get recognized is heavily dependent on where we are. I get recognized at Gallifrey 1 decently reliably. But outside of that, not so much. Oh, reminder, while I will try to keep up with the chat, I make no promises, and the way to guarantee that I will see your comment and or answer your question would be to do it as a super chat, which will also get you a heart from me. Love the potion vial theme going. Thank you. This is what I treated myself to at the Ren Fair, because unfortunately, all the entries for excuse me, all the entries for the archery tournament were full up, so I couldn't win that. Although I did still get yet another Master Archer ribbon, which you get for hitting a bullseye, because I did still shoot at the range. So, I still got that, regardless. Except for when I get mistaken for Riley. Yeah, that happened. That happened several times my first year there. That... and I really don't think we look that similar. Ah, well. She and I still get a kick out of that, though. Yes, Ms. Wicked Wolf, I know you do keep up with all my stuff. Garfield turned 45 this month. Have you ever gone back and looked at like the very first Garfield strips? He looks so weird compared to how he looks now. It's really strange. The Renaissance Fair was fun. It was raining, so I had to bring the umbrella. My kiddo came with me, and so I was basically on umbrella duty. I had my rainbow umbrella, so I had the big gay umbrella. I actually made it a thing, because like sometimes it would dial down enough that we didn't need the umbrella, and then it would start up again, and I'd put it up. But I would be like, extend the umbrella, like, gay! Oh, Jen! Past midnight in the UK, now it's my birthday. Happy birthday, Jen. Like early Simpsons, weird. Actually, weirder, Chandler. See, the thing is, you can look at early Simpsons. The weirdest thing about early Simpsons is honestly the way they move and animate. The designs, you can look at those and go, okay, I see how that got refined. You look at the early design of Garfield, and it's like, how is that where we started? How is that where this whole thing began? I haven't really watched too much Garfield stuff in a while. Ooh, got the Family Guy Garfield, his 9 Lives bit stuck in my head now. I don't remember that bit, but I'll tell you what, Garfield's 9 Lives is an excellent special. I like the Garfield specials. There's a number of them I still like. I like Garfield Halloween. I like Garfield Christmas. I like Garfield's 9 Lives a lot. They're just good. Yeah, even the very first one, Here Comes Garfield. And like the music's real good on those too. The early ones, they had Lou Rawls singing these things. Oh, it was great. I said, here comes Garfield. Oh, you better look out. Here comes Garfield. It's great. It's great. I love that. I just had a viewing experience that made me feel really bad for Funimation's adaptation writers. Oh? I'm curious now. There's a bit where a character who can't read constructs a message by drawing images that phonetically make up the word they want to communicate, but it only works in Japanese. Ooh. Yep. No, that would complicate things. Elijah Anderson, thank you very much for the super chat. Happy Pride, big fan of yours. Loved your last video on the abuse involved in Spider-Verse. Thank you for that. I didn't love making it, but I'm glad it's being taken well. I was saddened when I read the article. Yeah, you and me too. Like, the thing is, I can't necessarily say I was surprised, and I might not even have done something if it hadn't been able to lay out exactly the way in which the thing was mismanaged. Because being able to see, and then to reiterate on video for folks, the specific way in which the management was just deeply disrespectful. Because look, first of all, crunch is never okay. Like, it's not. It's just not. But there is a difference, I think, in terms of the situation. There is a difference that is worth noting between a project where everyone's been trying and working and moving it forward, but like they're just up against the deadline. There's still probably been some mismanagement, but there's a difference between that and going in, telling your animators, Don't bring me this unfinished stuff. Make it fully rendered, fully finished, then bring it in, then I'll decide if we're using it. That is so disrespectful. And what's really annoying is Chris Miller and Phil Lord, like, they started in animation. They should know this. It's really awful. And like, the thing is, I suspect that they haven't done this on all their stuff. I suspect that this is something that, like, this is complete speculation on my part. I suspect this is something they do now that they have the clout to get away with it. I am pretty sure on Clone High, the original airing of that, they did not have the clout to get away with telling people to bring them finished stuff before they could decide to cut it. But it just works better for them, and so they make people do it, despite the fact that it is literally a waste of everyone else's time and effort. Anyway, just Googled it. Garfield looks weird, but John looks so much weirder. Yeah, like the whole aesthetic of Garfield got a lot more cartoonish as it went on. Those early ones, though, they are odd. I went to my first Pride, got to see my girlfriend, the most relaxed she's been while dressed, slightly femme, and wearing a trans flag around her waist. Oh, Cara! That's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. Am I going to say see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Probably. My mother wants to see it, so I'll probably go with her. We'll answer some of your Trial of a Time Lord questions via Big Finish in regards to if the Perry mind swap thing actually happened. Yes, but it's more complicated than that. Oh, like that's the exact kind of thing Big Finish loves to pick up and run with. So how do I feel about the ongoing saga of shows being canceled and erased for tax purposes? I hate it. I hate it. This is the system that we've built, and this is how stuff is incentivized. And the main thing that really irritates me about it is, you know, I think there was proper and deserved righteous outrage at HBO doing it. I'd really hoped that the pushback on that would dissuade others from doing the same thing. But I think the thing is that unless you were subscribed to HBO Max for that one specific thing that they've now gotten rid of or canceled or taken off the servers, odds are you still have a subscription to Max now. And so ultimately, from their perspective, like, everybody complained, everybody bitched, and what probably actually happened in terms of how many customers they lost probably wasn't that many. Probably nowhere near how much money they saved by taking the stuff off the servers. And so what we're dealing with is basically the rest of the entertainment industry is kind of catching up to video games because so much stuff that's normal now. The carving off of what used to be standard content as initially DLC and then later microtransactions. Things like alternate costumes, which used to be a fun thing you could unlock. Now you have to pay extra money for it. Things like that. It's so normal now. And it used to be that stuff either got mocked or shouted down. But the thing is, either because people felt like, well, I just won't participate in that stuff, or they just wanted the rest of what the game had to offer regardless. Those kinds of controversies rarely actually hurt the sales of the games. Loot boxes was a little different because the uproar on that got even worse. But basically the lesson that the video game industry learned over the last 20 years was gamers will complain very, very loudly and then buy it anyways. And unfortunately, I think the rest of the entertainment industry is reaching a similar conclusion, at the very least when it comes to streaming platforms. Less so when it comes to something like movie tickets or, newly launched shows or whatever. So it's not across the board. But specifically in regards to the streaming platforms, I think they are coming to a similar conclusion of, we will do these things, we'll take stuff off of it, we'll make it no longer available, we will strip away the ability to see these things, and people will bitch about it, but they also won't cancel their subscriptions. And they're right. So, Am I going to see the next Hunger Games movie based on the prequel book? Probably not, Louise. I actually haven't read any of the books. I only saw the first 2 movies. So, no, that's not really high on my priority list. Let's see. Early Garfield looks like a grumpy cat with a face shaped like balls. You're not wrong. Do you think there's a difference between schlock and pulp? If there is, it's a hair-splitting kind of difference. It's like personal definitions. For all intents and purposes, not really. I love Renaissance fairs. I haven't been to one in over a decade. Oh, Eternal Sailor Earth. I recommend you get to one. I haven't even been to that many. I've been to the ones around near where I am in Vermont, but they're not even like that big. They're not like the big, huge ones and all these things. They're just nice. I just like them. Plus, I win the archery tournament. So, I just got my girlfriend fully caught up on Doctor Who, so now I'm happy I have someone in my life to talk about all the news to. That is always nice to have, isn't it? I like Heathcliff. I never read Heathcliff. I remember the cartoon, though. Been enjoying the Babylon 5 podcast. I'm curious which character has grown on you the most and why. I mean, probably Franklin, but that has to do with how much I really hated him in the first season. Like, I really did not like him at all. So, he kind of had nowhere to go but up. I got to share this pride with my mom as our first pride out together was a great time. Aw, that's great, Bex. Speaking of pride, I requested an asexuality t-shirt for my birthday. Hope I get it. Fingers crossed. DreamWorks made a bad move releasing their movie the same day as Dial of Destiny. Is that the Teenage Kraken one? I don't know what DreamWorks is up to. Art being destroyed for tax purposes is some dystopian shit. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Did camcorder have screens in 1994? In the time travel story I'm reading, there's a plot point about the character not being able to show some footage because they didn't have a VCR. Some models would have. A view screen would not have been on all camcorder models in 94. Some would. Some would have that, I think, by then. But it wouldn't have been standard. And that's me guesstimating in my head on the timeline there. If you want a deep dive in Garfield, I suggest YouTube channel Super Eye Patch Wolf. I've heard of that channel. I don't think I've ever watched them. Do I like iced tea? Only if it's unsweetened. I find iced tea to be way too sweet most of the time. What did you mean last week when you said the studios take their quips super seriously? I don't remember the context in which I said that, so I don't know. Like, you gotta realize when I'm shooting something unscripted, The odds of me remembering it later aren't high. My city isn't holding their Pride this year until October, so I decided to go to a drag bingo instead and pine after my best friends like the useless lesbian I am. Oh, Louise. I hope you mean that as like a mood label and not like a genuine thought of what you are, because you're not useless. I wouldn't want the Valyar to return in the TV series, if only because Big Finish gave him a perfect final appearance in the 8th Doctor Time War series. Oh, all right. I mean, I just don't really care. You're talking about why studios couldn't market pulp stories. Oh, okay. So the thing is, the quippiness that is in a lot of modern day films, and people like attribute it to Marvel, but it's kind of all over the place right now. It's in there as part of like, it's in there like it's part of a checklist. And the thing about pulp is, part of pulp stories is they are honestly usually over serious, or at the very least taking something that is a little bit like, really, and you know, this is true of pulp and schlock and camp and all that, is treating something seriously when it's like, what? The thing about quippy nature that studios are very, very fond of, because it's on the checklist for elements that you can drop into basically any movie, and like, oh, the real big popular movies have quippy dialogue. Oh, let's drop this in. Oh, gee, Rick. I don't know why I turned into Morty there out of nowhere. Anyways. You know, when you're at a point where you're trying to have that kind of taking things less seriously, because the quips basically acknowledge that the situation is maybe not worth being taken fully seriously. And if you're going to do pulp or schlock or camp, right, it needs to be treated seriously. If you treat it like a joke, that's when it becomes a spoof or a pastiche or a parody and stops being the thing. Our philosophy is favorite Donna moment. Mine is a wasp that's giant. Oh gosh, I don't know. Honestly, I just like her on the hill with Wilf. That just gives me a real warm feeling. that is one of my favorite quotes from Babylon 5, Dharma. Vir, what do you want, you moon-faced assassin of joy? Londo's great. Like, Londo's terrible. Like, a horrible person. But Londo's great as a character. Yes, it is a mood. They're dating each other, and I'm too afraid to ask about a throuple. Aww. Polyamory is becoming more common, especially among the queer community. I'm just saying, if you can find people who are comfortable with it, or for whom it comes naturally, that are going to bounce well off each other and be comfortable with each other, regardless of the specifics of their own dynamic, but just like collectively, just sort of the piece fit together well. Multiple partners is a real nice thing. I'm just saying, it's a real nice thing. Been rewatching Joel Schumacher Batman and Robin lately, most because of Arnold's ice puns and Uma Poison Ivy to cheer myself up. I mean, if that does it for you, power to you. Please do this as Morty. I don't know if I can actually do a Morty voice very well. But hey, Rick, what if we get recast because our voice actor is a monster? Like, that's not quite right. I haven't paid attention, partly because, like, I've only seen, like, 3 episodes of Rick and Morty, because it's just, I just didn't really like it. I hated the characters, ultimately. So I don't know how well I could even do Justin Roiland's voices. I do know that like they've already recast him for the part he played on Solar Opposites, which is on Hulu. And the way, I don't watch this, but I heard about it. The way they did that, they had, like, the characters are like in a bar and somebody throws a dart and it hits the character that was voiced by Roiland in the throat. And they like patch him up, but it permanently changes his voice. And so the new voice actor isn't even trying to sound like Justin Roiland. I love that. Like, I think that should become the way that they do this. Do I prefer Futurama over Rick and Morty? Well, by default, I like Futurama. I don't like Rick and Morty, so yeah. That said, I don't know how high on my priority list watching the new Futurama stuff is going to be. Like, it just ended so well. Excuse me. Could I do an Uma Thurman Poison Ivy impression? It was very Mae West. It was very Mae West, wasn't it? Poison. Poison Ivy. I can't remember too many of her lines. Wait, they brought back Futurama? Not yet, but there's a trailer out there. It's going to be on Hulu. Who is a character that many find annoying that I enjoy? I don't know. I know a lot of people find Nardole annoying. I quite like him. Well, not his first appearance, to be fair. Polyamory is hard work. Solo polyamory is a valid thing too. Oh, absolutely. Like, there's a lot of different ways for that to play out and to manifest. But, you know, for some of us, it makes a lot of sense. Just saying. Do I think Annabeth from Percy Jackson, the books, has a southern accent? I've never read those books, so I have no opinion. I love Jewel from Farscape, but so many hate her. She was a little iffy when she first showed up. Jewel grew on me. Naranti's the one I can't stand. I really don't like her. The time travel story is set in 2013, even though it's written in 1994. The funniest thing about this version of 2013 is they mention Macaulay Culkin is the new James Bond. Okay, that's got to be a joke then, because, like, they never would. He's not even, like, they wouldn't cast an American. I was going to say he's not even English. To be fair, they cast an Australian that one time, but it was literally that one time. My mom and stepdad are polyamorous. Her girlfriend is coming to visit today. I love watching how happy they are. Aww, that's wonderful. I know King of the Hill is meant to be coming back. It will be very interesting to see if they'll recast Luann. I would imagine they would. They were going to cast Adam West as Bond. That would have been interesting. I'll take Back to the Future over Rick and Morty any day. Well, Back to the Future is legitimately great. Rick and Morty is just... I just really, like, even fully setting aside the issues with Roiland. I watched those 3 episodes and I'm like, I can see how this is clever. I can see how this is witty. I can see how this is intelligent. But boy, do I not want to spend time with these people. And like, I also, if I can be a little bit mean about Roiland. I can't stand his voices. Like, even the one voice he did on Gravity Falls, I really didn't like. He's just real grating to the ear, or at least to mine. And I'm sure that's like, that would come back with a working as intended note. These are supposed to be annoying characters. Well, congratulations, I guess. You annoyed me. Yeah, I think it's a joke. Like they say, you'd not think he'd work in the role, but he does. Yeah, so, okay, so clearly they knew. Supreme Omega, thank you kindly. Hope you're well. Thoughts on the term rainbow capitalism? Because for me, when corporations wear the pride flag, I suspect they only care about the money. Well, first of all, Supreme Omega, of course they only care about the money. Like, yes, factually, they only care about the money. So like, don't even question that. Don't even doubt that. Yes, of course they do. Here's what I have said in the past about rainbow capitalism, and I do stand by this, although this is not a hill I'm prepared to die on. While rainbow capitalism is fundamentally insufficient, especially these days, in a time when queer people, trans people especially, are being actively legislated against, oppressed, and attacked, sometimes physically, simply for existing, just putting up a rainbow flag is wholly insufficient. And it's also worth noting that a lot of these corporations will back politicians who push for anti-queer legislation. Now, I was going to say to be fair, not to be fair, but for full context, they generally back those politicians because they back people who will free up as much regulation as possible, who tend to be Republicans, who also tend to have a lot of overlap. So they don't back these people because they're anti-queer. They back them for the money, for selfish financial, regulatory, tax law-based reasons, and what those people will do on those kinds of fronts. And those people just also happen to be anti-queer. So understanding all that these corporations are not our friends, they're definitely not our allies. There is a tiny silver lining of value to rainbow capitalism. And I've said this elsewhere before, but I'll say it again. These are companies and corporations with entire departments, multiple salaried people, whose entire job is keeping a pulse on the direction of culture and trying to look like they're on the right side of it. So while infuriatingly, behind closed doors, they back politicians who do harm us, again, for the money, not because they harm us, but it is still what happens. The end result is the same. While behind closed doors they do that, the fact that they don't do that publicly, the fact that they will publicly support us, means that their well-educated, well-versed teams of people believe that supporting us and siding with us is the right side to be on. They think we're gonna win. And I do take some comfort in that. Doesn't mean I want to throw a bunch of money at Disney or Target or anything else because they have a rainbow flag up. No, absolutely not. But I do still see some value in it being there. Not a ton and not enough, but some. So that's sort of where I'm at. And I don't think rainbow capitalism is worth, at this point, getting that worked up about, because it is so far down the priority list of shit we need to be dealing with. I think it was more valid as an argument, say, 3 or 4 years ago when we were on the upswing, following the gay marriage ruling. But since then, like, this is not a good use of our energy. Seems from the leaked set pictures that Walter Peck is back in the next Ghostbusters film. Oh, God damn it. Why? There is no need. Oh, I think I even heard that before. How do we stop Democrat politicians from going centrist? Depends on where they are. Like some of them, your more Southern Democrats, if you can get them to centrist, you're lucky. Because you have people like Joe Manchin who are just Republican light. Honestly, you run progressive candidates against them and you vote for those people. So that if you're very lucky, the progressive will get in. In worst case scenario, if the progressive still does well, then maybe the Democrat who does win will go, oh, I shouldn't be scorning that side of the thing. That's a broad general thought, though. Paramount's also removing stuff. They took down Prodigy. Oh, yeah, no, I saw that news, and my immediate thought was Jessie's going to be rip shit. And she was. Clearly, they care about the money, but I personally feel the more we see rainbows in stores, the more normalized it becomes. Yeah, there's some value there as well. Actually, I did the math in my head. Culkin was only 32, 33 in 2013. Even if he had been right for the role, do you think he'd be too young for Bond? I mean, at that point in time, no, not for that mentality that would have been had at that time, because they had Craig in place by then, but there's a reason why they're looking for a 30-something Bond now. They want someone who can stick around for as many movies as possible. So, no, I could see that having been the mentality then too. Companies should be allies beyond Pride Month. I mean, companies should be dismantled and stripped down and broken apart and not allowed to get as big as they are, and they shouldn't be allowed to put money into politics. That's what should really happen. I shouldn't have to worry about whether or not a company is an ally. Honestly, it shouldn't matter. They shouldn't have that kind of pull or that kind of swing or that kind of power in politics. They just shouldn't. The season of Ted Lasso pulled a crappy trope. A character in a woman-loving woman relationship got back with the man she was originally with in the second season, and everyone demonized the woman-loving woman ship. That's shitty. That's a shame. Did you get to see Trevor Noah's bit about the idea of Idris Elba being floated as the next Bond? I might have. I don't remember it now. But, well. Favorite current serving governor in the U.S.? I don't know. I don't pay attention to governors that much. I don't like mine. I've not voted for my governor once, and he's on, I think, his third term. I don't like the Vermont governor. Can Jinx and Arcane be read as autistic? Well, John Vinyls, thank you for the super chat, first of all. I'm not really the best person to ask, as so far as I am aware, I don't have autism. I don't think. I don't have a diagnosis. Let's go with that. And I don't have as much experience in trying to do neurodivergent readings on characters. So I don't feel super comfortable answering that. What I will say is Jinx is definitely awash in trauma. Like she is walking trauma. But if we were to narrow down on the front end of the show, first 3 episodes when she's young, possibly she's certainly lacking in a lot of coping skills, but that's not necessarily an autistic trait. I mean, like, there can be overlap. So, like, without, again, reiterating, I'm probably not the person who should be answering that. I would think possibly, but I actually think it gets potentially problematic reading her that way, especially looking at, you know, her early segments. But again, like, I also, like, not really my place to say. I was so happy to see the lesbian representation overall. I thought the season was good. They just screwed over that character big time. That's still a shame. All I care about with rainbow capitalism is the people who get so angry about the rainbow and go completely insane over it. I mean, that is its own special kind of thing, isn't it? I don't think it makes sense for anyone other than a white British man to play James Bond, given he's supposed to represent. That's why I want to get rid of the character. I mean, I think it depends on whether or not you want to try and update and revise the character. Now, James Bond, as he existed in the 60s, being a representation of not just Britain, but specifically British colonial oppression, basically. He was an embodiment of the empire. Yeah, he absolutely should be white. But if you're gonna reboot again, which you have to with the way No Time to Die ended, God, that movie was crap. I don't get why people like that one. I really don't. But anyways, if you're going to revise Bond in some way, you could reshape him in a way that would make that work. I would say if they were ever going to, like, make Bond into a period piece, like set it back in the 60s again, I do agree with you. He should be white because of the specific era of Britain that he embodies. It, like, because the thing is, Bond, especially at that time, embodies a lot of the worst of the British Empire, of colonialism. And yeah, he should be white. But, you know, in terms of newer stuff moving forward, depends on what they do with it. Trevor Noah did the best Oscars joke in years back in 2019. I don't remember much of the Oscars these days, to be honest. Who is the best Joker so far? I think Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix. Tie for the top. Nobody get into a pedantic argument with me about, oh, well, he's technically not the Joker. Piss off. Jerome from Gotham was excellent. I really loved him. That's not to knock Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix. Heath Ledger was great. Joaquin Phoenix put in the work. He was the best part of a not particularly good movie. And that's limiting it to live action, of course. Because the instant you go to animated, you bring in Mark Hamill and everybody else loses. Ian Fleming modeled the character of James Bond, at least partly on Roald Dahl. Yeah, no, I knew that. Gozer. Damn, I'm late, but it's for good reasons. No worry, Amber. Like, we're just rambling about whatever comes up. So, no problem. James Bond's possibly a codename anyway, so it's possible anyone could play the character. Again, that kind of depends, because, like, Skyfall, Daniel Craig's Bond. You could make the argument of Bond being a codename for some of the others, but honestly, it doesn't hold up very well. Daniel Craig Bond is a dude named James Bond. Like, he just is. That's the way Skyfall is handled when he goes back to his ancestral home and the gamekeeper calls him James. Like, James Bond's his name. That's just a dude named James Bond. The previous era, the previous multiple eras of James Bond prior to that, like, there was an argument to be made that, maybe it's a code name. There were even certain hints to that effect, like George Lazenby had the name, I bet this never happened to the other guy, implying that he might have just taken on the identity. But then there was stuff like For Your Eyes Only, which opens in a way that only makes sense if the Roger Moore James Bond is the same guy as the George Lazenby James Bond. So, it's weird. Continuity in that show is very weird. Hamill's my Joker. Mark Hamill's Joker was... he was good stuff. Hang on a second. Let me check something here. Just a moment. Talk amongst yourselves. No, that's not what I want. Here we go. All right, I was trying to find myself here we go. I was trying to find myself a good Joker bit. Dear friends, today is the day the clown cried, and he cries not for the passing of one man, but for the death of a dream. The dream that he would someday taste the ultimate victory over his hated enemy. For it was the Batman who made me the happy soul I am today. How I agonized over the perfect way to thank him for that. Perhaps a cyanide pie in the face, or an exploding whoopee cushion playfully planted in the Batmobile. But those dreams were dashed by the Weasley little gunsel sitting there in our midst, the cowardly, insignificant goneth who probably got lucky when Batman slipped on the slime trail this loser left behind him. This mound of diseased hyena filth who's not fit to lick the dirt from my spats. But I digress. The time for sorrow has passed. It's time to look to a future filled with smiles. And I'll be smiling again just as soon as we take that man there and slap him in that box there and roll him into that vat of acid there. Hamill was great. I enjoy doing Hamill Joker. Jerome, not Jeremiah. Correct. Gedrin. I don't like Jeremiah at all. I think Jerome's awesome, though. I always think of Jack when I think of Joker. I feel like Jack Nicholson gets lost a little bit in the conversation now, which is a shame. Because he is a good Joker. Wait till they get a load of me. Beck's $2 super chat for our mutual love of Mark Hamill as the Joker. Oh, thank you very much. Discord, yes. I will check that in just a second, Carolyn. The main character in the next culture book I want you to read is partially a deconstruction of Bond, I believe. Oh, that'll be interesting. Yeah, Susie. James, especially freaking Goldfinger. It's bad. It's real bad. Gamer Jamie. Hope you're having a good month. It'd be good to see a trans woman of color who's bisexual with a girlfriend just to piss off all the conservatives who said James Bond should always be a man. Well, I mean, they kind of did that because they had a woman take over the 007 designation in No Time to Die. Not that it helped the movie. Still wasn't very good. Anyways, I gotta pop over to the Discord. Reminder, Council of Geeks Discord is a Patreon exclusive perk. So if you go to patreon.com/Council of Geeks, support at $2 or more, you can get access to the Discord. But I got to pop over there and see what questions they have brought up. All right, we got a few. You said you could maybe be a pro-capitalist if we had regulations to keep it from exploiting people too much. Do you think it's actually possible for a society to maintain regulation like that long term? I'm of the opinion that regulations like that will always get rolled back eventually, since rich people don't want them and rich people will always be able to use their wealth to influence government policy. Well, two things about that relatively quickly. The first is, one of the things that I would very happily implement is a maximum wage. That would do a lot to cap the accumulation of wealth. But beyond that, the thing is, while that is not an invalid criticism, it's basically in some form, not that exact wording, but some form true of pretty much every system. Whatever the guardrails are that are in place, meant to keep any political or social system in line and going the right way, can always be dismantled by the people who have power. In a capitalist system, that happens to be the people with money. In other systems, it might be the people who hold certain political positions or both. So, like, that's just, you're not wrong, but that's also just a criticism of humans. Any system is prone to that kind of problem, because no matter what any political thinker tells you, no system is self-correcting. Every system has problems and needs guardrails to keep that system from just falling into the worst version of itself. But the guardrails can always be dismantled, no matter what the system is. Your last video about the Spider-Verse reminded me of something I was wondering back at the start of the writer's strike. Do you think paying to see a movie that was written by writers who were writing during the strike, i.e. scabs, would be morally comparable to crossing a picket line? I don't really know. I mean, part of it is logistically, I don't know how clear it's going to be when that does happen. Because so far as I'm aware, like, there isn't anything like that going on right now. Most of the stuff that is still moving forward was stuff that already had exemptions from the union. Like, Jessie's still prepping identities, but she's not a union writer. And even if the actors strike, she's consulted with her crew, like, will you want to continue to work or will you want to stop? And they'd be like, no, we're okay, because it's a very small production, so it's got exemptions from the normal requirements of the union in terms of pay and all the rest of the stuff anyways. So but like, to throw the logistics out and just deal with the philosophical heart of what you're asking, it'd certainly be in the same zip code. Whether it be comparable, I don't know. It'd be connected, certainly. There's a bit in one of the culture books where a character mentions the fact that on her home orbital, there's a group of people who spend all their time living in the woods, gathering wild food so they can occasionally climb up and then skydive off these floating blimp creatures that live there. The culture is okay with letting them live there since they're not hurting anyone. Do you think that kind of thing is something that's unfortunately lacking in Trek's depiction of near utopian society? All the people who'd want to take advantage of a lack of social restriction or need to work to live, take up strange, seemingly alternative lifestyles? No, but only because the lens through which we view Star Trek, it wouldn't make sense for that to come up very much. Because basically, I think the nature of Star Trek as a narrative certainly allows for that. But since the stories of Star Trek are pretty much always on diplomatic bases, or more often than not, ships that are on a specific mission, they're not going to be crewed by those kinds of people. So I don't think it's a problem. Like, Trek does lack that a little bit, but not in the world. I think I have an easy time believing that kind of thing happens within the world of Star Trek. It's just the narrative of Star Trek doesn't really allow for that to come up, with the kinds of settings that they use and plots that they have in motion. If you had to make an educated guess, why is crunch still a thing when all the science says that more than 50 hours of work is going to suffer from diminishing returns? Well, there's a couple reasons. And the first is that No matter what they say, ultimately, people who make the decisions, the executives, they are human beings and they act off emotion just as much as anybody else. Emotion that is largely driven by a desire for money, and they do look at numbers to justify that, but emotionally they believe that it is better to squeeze what they have out of the resources they have than to hire more people or wait longer. And there's the external pressure of the shareholders, which is why delays are rare, unless it's really gone off the rails. But like beyond that, the excuses that companies will give will be like, well, like this is a creative field. We could hire more people, but then like we got to bring them up to speed on everything going on, make sure they're in line with the vision. Like let's just work with who we have. And it also gets to be a slightly weird dynamic where you have to bring in temp people by and large, because most projects don't need that big a projects that end up crunching their staff. They need to be ramped up in the tail end of production, which is usually where the crunch happens. But that means, as a practicality, hiring temporary workers, which are often seen as less skilled. That's not always accurate, but it's often how they're seen. And also harder to control, because they can leave they have a much higher ability to leave at any moment because they're not under salary. Now, that doesn't mean that they will. There's a good chance they still need the work because they are crunched under capitalism, same as everybody else. But they're theoretically harder to control, which is part of why, especially in the video game industry, they will dangle the promise of permanent employment in front of temp people on the occasions when they actually hire them. But, like, there's no good reason why crunch is still a thing. There are lots of stupid bullshit reasons, but there's no good reason. Because it can even come down to something as horrifying as the people in charge being like, well, I had to do this, so what are you complaining about? Which is, I hate that. I hate that so much. And you hear that in so many places. You hear that like with student loans. Well, I had to pay off my student loan debt. I'm like, so well, first of all, you probably don't know how bad it is. Maybe it was bad for you, but it probably wasn't this bad. But let's set that aside. Assume for a minute that it was. Why would you want that for somebody else? You sadistic shit. I'm swearing more this stream than I usually like to, but given the broken state of capitalism, funny we went there. If you had to make an educated guess, what would be a pragmatic solution to bring the worst excesses of it to heel? I don't know, because it's going to be incredibly difficult to roll back most of the stuff that has gone completely out of hand, and people won't let it happen. Okay, if we want to be cold and pragmatic about it, eat the rich. I know it's like a motto, but seriously. We probably wouldn't even have to eat all of them. 2, maybe 3. Just to send the message that we're not messing around. That might do it. Thought experiment. You are the host of a Taste of Vermont party. What are you serving? Difficulty, no maple syrup. Okay. Well, you're gonna have plenty of stuff with cheese, especially extra sharp cheddar, Cabot, because that stuff's amazing. You're gonna serve cider to drink. You're gonna go with bacon. And it will be maple smoked, because you said no maple syrup, not no maple anything. So we'll get maple smoked bacon in there. That's sort of the stuff that is coming off in the top of my head. But, a good fresh salad. We get good greens up here. I'd probably have to do kale just because it's native around here. I don't like it, but some fried up bits of kale. I can't, I'm not good at full meal planning, but there's sort of your amuse-bouche or whatever. How do I deal with people in my friend group saying stuff like, yeah, crunch won't be a thing when animators get replaced by AI because they complain about crunch too much? I don't know. It depends on their reason for saying that, When you get a professional job, you'll learn that crunch is just a part of life. Oh, okay, so they're shitheads. Only 4 animators spoke out about this. This may just mean they're new. And all crunch complaints just boil down to people complaining about working overtime and happy employees countering that by saying they were paid overtime, which could be worse. All right, let's run down. You say replaced by AI as if we should allow that to happen. We shouldn't. We should be preventing that too. We could do both. Crunch is a part of life. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Even if it is, it shouldn't be. You used to be able to maintain a home on a part-time job, a very humble home. But you used to be able to maintain a home on a part-time job or on minimum wage. You could pay a mortgage on minimum wage. You can't now. So don't tell me like it's just a part of life. It's not supposed to be. Only 4 animators spoke out about it. Maybe that may just mean they're new. They're not. They were vetted by Vulture, and if you read the original article, they note that 3 out of the 4 were veterans of the industry who made specific comparisons to stuff they've already endured on other things, and noting that this was worse. Like, all of these basically boil down to, I don't want to have to think about how capitalism is destroying somebody's life. And people have a lot of reasons for not wanting to acknowledge that, whether it be they themselves are consumers and they want to continue to consume whatever the thing is. It may just be philosophical exhaustion if they just don't have the processing power anymore. Or it could be that capitalism is doing just fine by them. And so it's I'm just going to lean into the fact that I'm swearing tonight. It's a fuck you got mine thing. Could be any number of things. How do you deal with them? I don't know. The thing is, and I'm going to say this strictly for myself. This is not advice. But I'm not friends with anyone who would say that. So I don't have advice for what you should do about people in your friends group who say those things. Because I'm not friends with people who say those things. And I don't mean that in a you should ditch your friends way, but I mean that in a I don't know, I don't have advice on how you maintain friendships with people like that. I don't know how, because I can't. So, what are your thoughts on the trend of posting memes about the recent submarine disaster? Do you think it's ever morally okay to joke about a person's death because they were in a position of privilege or because they were partially responsible for what happened? So, I'm going to tread on this real lightly. What happened with that submarine is not a tragedy. It is sad for anyone who was close to or a loved one of those people, and for them I have sympathy. It is not a tragedy. Therefore, without laying out what is or is not okay, because I don't know where the lines are, I personally am of the mind that it is more acceptable than is standard to make memes or jokes about such a thing. Because I'm kind of making a distinction in my mind. Anyone who says you can't joke about a death, no, I don't think that's true. If you want to say you can't joke about a tragedy, I would say that's closer. You shouldn't joke to make light of a tragedy. You can still joke about tragedies depending on how you frame the joke, because to quote George Carlin, you can joke about anything. It all depends on how you work the joke. But a joke that makes light of tragedy is something nobody should be doing if they care at all about other people. But also, this wasn't a tragedy. Does that mean we can all just point and laugh? At a certain point, it's like continuing to hit a piñata that's got nothing left in it. I think we might have hit that point with that thing, if I'm being completely honest, but that's also my own personal taste. I have seen some of those memes, and I can be very touchy about jokes that make light of tragedy. And I don't have a problem with any of the memes I've seen. What it is about the aspects of trauma leading to villainy used with the Spot in the new Spider-Verse movie that didn't bother you as much as the ones used with Wanda in Multiverse of Madness? Oh, I can answer that really easily. Because with Spot, he's overreacting. So, like, you could make an argument that what happened to him with the Collider is a bigger deal, but, like, the fact that he singles out the bagel, that tells you everything you need to know about him. He blames everyone else for his problems. And the fact that the Collider happened, that's not Spider-Man's fault. That's Kingpin's fault. But he can't get to Kingpin. He can get to Spider-Man. So he is choosing to target the one who he can hurt, not even the one who is more responsible for what happened. The thing about Spot is that his trauma is debatable. Because honestly, up until the point where he actually is face-to-face with Spider-Man and decides that he's not being respected, he doesn't seem that traumatized. And again, I'm not trying to make light of what happened to him, but dude's just trying to rob an ATM. He's not... And like, again, the fact that he brought up the bagel. This is somebody who has taken a petty slight and blown it way out of proportion. Wanda, they take genuine traumatic events. The loss of her, we're just going to go with husband. The loss of her kids. And it doesn't matter that they weren't real, quote unquote. For her, that loss is emotionally true. Taking that and say that that leads to villainy, I have a much bigger problem with than some entitled little shit going, you threw a bagel at me, now I'm going to end the multiverse. Like, those don't equate. And I can enjoy the first one because it's making plain within the text, this is not... this is like way out of proportion reaction. This reaction makes no sense. This is in no way a logical extension of what happened to him. Whereas Wanda, it is presented much more as she lost her family and she went mad. She went crazy. Like so many people in so many freaking movies, they lose their loved one and they just go crazy. Bite me. Aside from the fact that a lot of the specifics of Wanda also tick me off because, you know, when a parent loses their child, they don't just want a child back. Like, you see this in narrative sometimes, like, and then they kidnap someone else's child to replace them. People don't want somebody else. They want their child. And you could try and argue me like, oh, well, these are her kids and another. She did not raise them. They are not the same. They don't know her. They don't have that bond with her. A parent losing a child is a horrible, horrible thing. And it's traumatic. And it's breaking on an emotional level. But it doesn't turn you into a monster. So these things can stop. I'm sick of that as a trope. When you're unsure about someone's pronouns, do you find it better to default to they, them until you know better, or to use pronouns for the gender they appear to be presenting as? I have tried to get into the habit of defaulting to they, them when I don't know. I don't always, because I'm in my 40s and I have a lot of ingrained habits. But if you're trying to build the habits, I am personally of the opinion that they, them is the better default when you don't know. Because I think most people, unless they're the kind of person who's going to be an asshole about pronouns in the first place, as long as they're not that kind of person, I think most people will be understanding of the fact that you went with something neutral because you didn't know, and then they'll correct you, and you can all move forward. And I think that's probably going to be seen, even if they're not the right pronouns, seen as like, oh, well, that's considerate of you to go that way. Here's what it should be. At least that's my thought. Alrighty, back to the main chat. Where did we leave off? Oh, I got a few super chats to catch up on. Supreme Omega on baby boomers. These days, it seems like a lot of resentment toward boomers by younger generations. Is the meme with the meme of okay boomer? Thoughts? That animosity is earned. Boomers hold a disproportionate amount of wealth, a disproportionate amount of power. Like the drop-off of accumulated wealth, even like for the age equivalent ages, the discrepancy between boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z is monstrous. It's a fucking atrocity. Now, is that the fault of every single individual baby boomer? No, it isn't. But generationally, did they screw all of us, keep all the money from themselves, and burn down the planet? Yeah! Yeah, they did. And they still are. So, that is not unearned animosity. It should not be directed on an individual basis. It shouldn't be. Unless, like, you know for certain that the individual did something. But generationally, it's earned. Susie, thank you for becoming a snazzy supporter. I greatly appreciate that. I got a license to kill. Nya! Shoots you with a pink gun. So glad I joined. Thanks everyone. Chat are lovely people. Oh yeah, we have a good group here, Susie. So I'm glad to have you here. Let's see. The ending of Secret Invasion's first episode really pissed me off. I hope it's a fake out because I was at a watching party to see the character. I was watching partly to see that character as a lead for once. Yeah, it's a real waste. We'll see what happens. Supreme Omega coming in again. I've just made a habit of rolling that R. I hope you don't mind. What's the appeal of live action Disney remakes? I don't know. I legitimately, I don't know. I don't get it. I do not get the appeal at all. I don't know. Unheard Sirens Incorporated. Ooh, I like the name. Heard for you. Hey Vera, happy Pride. Thoughts on the style/lack of consistency in Shurigawa's Doctor's looks thus far? I am curious to see how that gets sort of integrated, or if it does get integrated into reflecting his personality. Because as a rule of thumb, the look of a doctor, reflects their personality in some way. So to have a doctor whose look keeps changing all the time, I'm hopeful that means something about the kind of person he is. And I'm very curious to see what that is. Now, if we get there and he's got like a super consistent, super stable personality, and he doesn't come across as being exceptionally worried about appearances or whatever, but he's doing that anyway, then there'll be a little bit of a grinding of gears. But I'm curious to discover what the numerous, vastly different outfits means for this doctor, what it says about him. I'm real curious to find out. Shugs with a box. Or Suggs with a box? I don't know. Happy Pride. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Let's see. Trying to work my way down. We're almost caught up. Supreme Omega on Wanda. The problematic villainization of her character is also a thing in the comics. Oh, I know. Just read House of M. Wanda suffered from a lot of bad writing. I know. And that really ticked me off when I bitched about her treatment by Multiverse of Madness, and some people being like, well, that's the kind of thing that happens in the comics. And I'm like, I know, and it's not okay there either. Oh, well. I have a license to slay. I saw your final review of Trial of a Time Lord. I agree the value art should not come back without an extremely good reason. If you know your future, you can change it. Ooh, that's good. That's a good perspective. I like that. Aaron O, 20 Canadian. Very generous. Thank you, Aaron. Hey, all, not feeling the greatest tonight. Just popping in to say hello. So hello. I hope you feel better soon, Aaron. And thank you very much for stopping in. The final scene from the first episode of Secret Invasion was actually filmed in my hometown. I got a chance to have a wander around the set when it was still open. Oh, nifty. Well, I am going to finish this off. There we go. A rainbow shirt from Target won't turn your kids gay. However, Natasha Lyonne as Tallulah Bankhead and the Billie Holiday bio picture as hell will. I believe that. Wanda suffered from bad writing in the Ultimates. Everybody suffered from bad writing in the Ultimates. Everybody. Even Miles suffered from some lousy writing. Not as bad. The Ultimates... Yeah. Anyways. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope that you have a good remainder of Pride. So, what have I got coming up? New Take-Two Doctor Who review for The Vanquishers. That is out tomorrow. That's on the main channel. I'll have a review for the third episode of the sixth season of Black Mirror. That will go out on Thursday in the break room. Tomorrow, I'm also streaming on Twitch in the morning. I'm going to be playing Diablo 3 because I refuse to shell out money for anything related to Activision Blizzard. And I have owned Diablo 3 since 2011? 2012? I've had it since pretty close to when it came out. So, I don't have to give them more money in order to play for that. Though, when I reinstalled it, boy, were they trying to get more money out of me. Bastards. Anyways, that'll be on Twitch in the morning. Saturday's video. What is Saturday's video? I've been working too much today. My brain is fried. Can't remember. Oh, right. Saturday's video is... Unless something happens, it's probably going to be just kind of a sort of a look at my own critical lens and the way in which I approach things when I talk about them, particularly in terms of, reviewing them. And so that should be it. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your evening, rest of Pride, and... I'll see you around. I just tried to do a super chat. I don't know if it worked. It did not come through 255, but I need to call it a night because I got to get to editing. So thank you all very much. I hope that you have a great rest of Pride. And please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. McCavity!